Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Can It Take a K26? The show where I take a variety of blasters and see if they can be upgraded using a K26 spring. I'm your host, Captain Xavier, and today we're going to be looking at some weird blasters, or weird in my opinion. Our first contestant is the Nerfravager. The Ravager was originally released in 2016 as part of the Alien Menace line, which was not a particularly big line and had some odd-looking blasters. It is an 8-shot revolver that has 4 sets of 2 smart ARs per thing. You pump it, you fire it, it rotates, you pump it, you fire it, it rotates. And so one pass it does one set, and then the next pass it does the other set. It does have slam fire, but only if you go kind of slow because the rotation is kind of slow. So if you try to go too quickly, it catches because it hasn't actually finished the rotation before you're trying to pull back, and so, yeah. So, weird. My initial guess is that internally it is basically a Guardian crossbow, but with potentially a beefier rotation mech given the size. So I'm worried about the priming mech. But let's get the stock numbers and performance on this so we can see what kind of an improvement we are able to get. First, FPS. All right, so the FPS readings on this, we're going to give it a go. It is using the original ammo that came with it, minus 1 dart that's wandered off. But this was not a Goodwill find. This I actually got at Ross, so it's brand new, never been sniffed, fresh darts. We'll see what kind of numbers it gets. 84, 82, 60, 87, 78, oh, 54, or 58. Interesting. There's one pair of the barrels that are getting 20 FPS lower. I don't know if it's just not sealing properly, if it's a manufacturing flaw, what its issue is, but the rest of them are getting 80s. So, not bad, actually, for what it is. Better than I was expecting for what it is. Let's take a look at accuracy. I'm curious. Train. All right, shooting at my little indoor range here because it's dark outside, because Pacific Northwest means the sun just doesn't come up, apparently. We'll see if I can actually hit that target at this range of, it's probably 25 feet, so it's not exactly a lot to ask. Well, that was impressive. That one was not. That sounds like the one that, oh. Interesting. Again, yeah, 1 barrel. Definitely messed up. I don't know if it's just not seated. Oh, I think I see the problem. Aha! One second. Try this again. There we go. It was one of the barrels that isn't attached when you get it, and I hadn't quite gotten it down all the way, so it wasn't quite seating. Anyway, kind of erratic. I mean, I was shooting stock Nerf darts, so even at this range, they were kind of poorly, but I could hit a man-sized target at this range, which, yeah. All right, let's see if we can beef this thing up. All right, so let's see if this thing can take a K26, and if not, let's see what it can take. All right. Well, sure enough, that looks remarkably like a Guardian crossbow in most respects. However, there are a few notable differences. Namely, there do appear to be gears in there. So, what's holding it in? There is a very slight gear reduction going on right here, which means we do have some mechanical advantage, which is nice. which means there's a better chance that this will be able to take a much heavier spring load than, say, the Guardian Crossbow could. Guardian Crossbow ran into the issue of the priming bar not being strong enough. Here, it's going to be those gears, but they seem fairly beefy, so I'm going to try to get into this plunger assembly and give it a try. Oh, this is not going to be fun to reassemble. Okay. There's our plunger. And K26 will fit in the plunger, but it is one of those where the spring has to compress into the head. And that is just never going to allow for K26, I'm pretty sure, because, yeah. Definitely not. Okay, but it is a screwed-on plunger head, which means it is easy to get off. So we're going to take a look in the bin and see if we can find a heavier spring that is that size, or smaller, because I could nest a spring inside it. But if I can find one that's that size, that's heavier. Nope. Oh. Well, that one definitely looks like, so close. Maybe. There need to be a pretty small spring. Well, I found a pretty small spring. A couple of them, actually. All right. So I got a spring nested in there. No idea what it was. One from the bin. It was a little long. Clipped it down, but it does fit inside. Nests nicely, and I think I'm getting enough compression. So now, for the hard part, reassembling this beast. All right, I am to the point of buttoning it up, and I really want it to work because I don't want to have to take this thing apart again, because this is not a pleasant blaster to work on. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Settlers.
Need more words from that man. Well, unfortunately, under the spring load, that gear broke a tooth. So it may, in fact, now be beyond repair or use. That is annoying and unfortunate. We will see. Yep. It busted. Having that tooth gone means that now it will not prime at all, which is tragic because this was a brand new blaster and I kind of liked it even though it was silly. Oh well. Someday I will learn to resin cast and will completely have forgotten about this, but you could make a gear for that if you knew how to either metal cast or resin cast, but frankly, I don't know that it's worth the effort. Well, that is sad and tragic. You could probably upgrade it with, say, one of the lesser strong arm springs, because I went for straight doubling it with a fairly stout spring. In fact, I think the spring I was adding was heavier than the original spring, so trying to put double the spring weight in was probably a bit ambitious, and unfortunately that indirect priming mech was just not strong enough to handle it. But what are you going to do? Right then, on to the next contestant after these messages. All of the K26 used on this series was donated by Out of Darts. Check out his new website at outofdarts.com for all your Nerf modding needs. All right, our next contestant is this Nerf Iron Man thing. I don't know that these had their own separate names, but yeah, there's actually 3 different variants of this. There's this one. Previous to this one, there was a Optimus Prime one, and before that, there was an Energon one. That is the one that I don't have, and would be nice to have it for the collection someday. But yeah, they're not very impressive. They are fairly tragic. They do have, I think that's supposed to be an extending stock. I don't know what that's all about. You prime it by pulling that, and then it's got a trigger up front. They're ridiculous. Here, I'll show you. All right, let's see what kind of FPS this thing gets. 57. That's considerably higher than I expected. 50. I may have underestimated this thing. 51. Huh. All right, now for the range, see if we can actually hit something with it. I can. Weird. All right. Now let's see how it actually looks on the inside and if there's any chance to upgrade it. That's twice now. I've gone to the part where I took the blaster all the way apart only to realize it wasn't filming, so I have to pretend that I'm taking the blaster apart, but I'm not going to do that. Anyway, we want to see if this can take a K26, so let's get into it. First, that part of the shell comes apart, and then you get into the actual guts of it, which are actually up in here. Unfortunately, it would appear that this little bit down here is in fact a solvent welded cap. So getting into the actual functional guts is kind of tricky. Ah, it's a geared mechanism too. And I don't feel like breaking this one. But I am going to open it up so you guys can take a look at what's going on in here. Did I lose the catch spring? Didn't see it sprung unless it shot at me. Okay. Well, that solves that problem anyway. Plunger tube's too small for K26. Okay. And the plunger rod is too big to fit a different spring. So I'm just going to put this one right back together and call it a day. If I can figure out how. Well, pretty sure I need that part, whatever that part is. Well, that's the, Lord, I don't know. Well, it still works, so I'm going to put it back together after a word from our sponsor.
Rocking chair.
I have to drag him up here and beat more words out of him. All right. Well, that's a no. Let's recap. All right, for those of you just tuning in or who just skipped to the end to see the results, that was a no for the Ravager, and that was a no for this Iron Man 2 thing. I was not expecting them to have as much in common internally as they did. They both have a geared priming mechanism. that gives you some mechanical advantage, which is probably why they're more powerful than I thought. The prime on this felt just ridiculously weak, and so I assumed it had no power. Turns out there's just so much mechanical advantage because of the gear down mechanism that it's actually more powerful than you would think. Same with this one. This one was surprisingly powerful for what it was, because there was a little bit of mechanical advantage giving you more of a prime than it feels like. Unfortunately, broke one of the teeth on one of the gears in this one, and so it no longer works at all. I would either need to find a way to replace that gear, or I could hypothetically make it direct prime, have a handle that came out the back, if I really wanted to make this work. Direct prime would then definitely allow me to have a heavier spring load, so I might consider that. But this one I decided not to even try upgrading because I didn't want to break it, because I don't know if they're rare, but it's an Iron Man blaster, so I decided not to risk breaking it. And I really didn't think I was going to have a spring that would fit, because it was a fairly exact, the plunger tube size and then the plunger rod size meant that you really had to have an exact spring size, and I didn't have one. If you could find a spring in exactly the right size that wasn't too powerful for the gears, obviously you could upgrade it. Same thing with this one. I think I went too ambitious on what I tried to upgrade it with. I think I was more than doubling the prime, which was just too much for those gears. If I'd gone for increasing it by 50%, say, I might not have broken it. Don't know. Don't really have any way to know for sure what those gears could take. They can't take what I tried to put in it, so there you have it. I did order a couple of the newer blasters, relatively new blasters, for Black Friday, that they did not arrive in time for this video, but I will have them for next month's. And then I'm pretty sure I've got the blasters lined up for February. After that, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so let me know if there are any blasters that I haven't done that you would like to see me do, and I will try hunting them down. I do have, of course, a ridiculous amount of vintage blasters that I could start taking a look at. A lot of them I've already done, but not all of them, so I may probably pull a couple of those down and take a look at some of them sometime next year. So there you have it. Anyway, thank you for watching.